The Department of Justice has released Special Counsel Jack Smith's much-anticipated report into the events after the 2020 election. That report concludes that there was enough evidence to convict the President-elect of serious crimes. The only reason he escaped a trial is that he won the presidency. Let that sink in. In short, he got away with it, all of it. Smith's report underscores Trump's penchant for bullying and intimidation to get what he wants. It also says that, quote, the through line of all of Mr. Trump's criminal efforts was deceit, end quote. Trump's 2024 election victory in effect halted the prosecution, and that decision, based on a long-time DOJ policy, came after the Supreme Court ruled in July 2024 that any president enjoys broad immunity from prosecution. Back to Smith. His report reads, quote, indeed, but for Mr. Trump's election and imminent return to the presidency, the office assessed that the admissible evidence was sufficient to obtain and sustain a conviction at trial.
The 145-page report accuses Trump of plotting to obstruct the collection and certification of votes after his 2020 defeat by President Joe Biden. The DOJ delivered the report to Congress after midnight on Tuesday. Now, Smith first brought charges against Trump in 2023, June, for his efforts to overturn the 2020 presidential election. In August of 2023, a grand jury indicted the former president.
The report says that the president-elect, quote, inspired his supporters to commit acts of physical violence on January the 6th, 2021. And Smith wrote, quote, the claim from Mr. Trump that my decisions as a prosecutor were influenced or directed by the Biden administration or other political actors is, in a word, laughable, end quote. The report also highlighted testimony when Trump allegedly privately admitted to losing to Biden in 2020, reportedly telling an aide, can you believe I lost to that effing guy? Trump criticized the report in a 1 a.m. post on Truth Social, writing, Jack is a lame-brained prosecutor who was unable to get his case tried before the election, which I won in a landslide. The voters have spoken.
Yeah, I think his framing here is just utterly ridiculous. His framing being Jack Smith's is his claim, Trump would be a convicted felon if not for him winning the presidential election. Okay, you have to prove this. Just because you put together a report that says, well, it's so obvious to me he's guilty of all these crimes which to my mind, again, I'm reading from the report now. Mr. Trump's false claims include dozens of specific claims regarding to certain states. It's all about claims. It's all about things he said. It's all about words he used, his free speech rights. You can disagree with the things that Trump said. I certainly disagree with the things Trump said. You can think that he's not fit to be president because of that, and you could have voted against him. And in fact, they impeached him over it. The proper mechanism was exercised. What Jack Smith has failed to do is demonstrate, let alone prove, and now he's acting like, oh, it's an open and shut done case. He would have had to prove it, that Trump's conviction, his tweets, his things he said, again, I'm not defending them, I don't agree with them, but that they were crimes. And that's what the difficulty was going to be, that these are speech-related matters and we have protections for speech, even speech you don't like or think is wrong or think is uncomfortable.
That's just not quite accurate in my opinion, Robby, because if you go back to the original indictment from Jack Smith, he is at pains to point out that it is true that Trump had the right to say things that were false, even if he knew them to be false, in an effort to overturn the election, but that the indictment does in fact pertain to actions taken, for example, promoting fake slates of electors, putting pressure upon members of Congress, or putting pressure on the Department of Justice to conduct sham investigations and so forth. It's just not true to say that this is purely about speech. Now, as for the claim that this would secure a conviction, of course Jack Smith, as the prosecutor, is going to say that it was, that he believes he had enough evidence to win the case. That's his role as a prosecutor. Of course it would be up to the courts and a jury to adjudicate that, and that, Mr. Trump, like any defendant, would have had the right to defend himself and to try to rebut that case, and has the right, in a criminal legal sense, to the presumption of innocence until proven guilty. But that process, that moment, was never arrived at because Trump was able to successfully delay and kick the can down the road on this legal case, and he won the election, and we won the election fair and square, no one disputes that. That means that he just can get to discontinue criminal cases against him, which is where the problem arises.
He won the impeachment vote. He won in that the Supreme Court said a lot of the actions he's taken as president are off the table, and he won the election. There were so many ways in which the collective judgment of a high-level legal experts for the Supreme Court, a judicial body, are elected congressional representatives that could have faced consequences for failing to remove him from office, and then the ultimate consequence of him being elected. And the American people just don't agree, or did not think this is disqualifying on some level. The conviction by this one man that again, I think not good at statements Trump made about the election, not correct, rose to a criminal matter, is not the collective judgment of the American people.
Well, it was the collective judgment of the people who issued the indictment, who sat on the grand jury.
Yeah, haven't you heard the thing about the ham sandwich?
But I mean, you can use that argument on any case in.
Well, I would happily use that case in a lot of the point about it power prosecutors to bring bullshit charges.
A jury never got to decide the matter. Maybe you're right. Maybe it would have gone before a jury. Trump would have had, I'm sure, a very high-powered legal team to defend him against the allegation of criminality. The problem is he never faced the allegation of criminality before a jury. It was never permitted to come before a jury of his peers to decide the matter. And you are now declaring his innocence. I mean,
well, he is innocent because he was not found guilty. Look, there are also, I should clarify, there are aspects of these cases against Trump that I find more plausible than others. I don't think it's all the same. I think from a legal standpoint, for instance, the Georgia case was somewhat strong because they were pointing to more tangible actions. In the Jack Smith case, if you had stripped out some of this, I might have said you would have had a stronger case. But this is the part where it really just loses me. You're right. Some of the conversations with state officials, maybe you prove actions beyond words, but the inclusion of the stuff on the day of January 6th really poisons the whole thing for me, because on that, it's all about how outraged they were that he wasn't tweeting in Mike Pence's defense. Again, you can say that's bad. You can say that's not presidential conduct, but that is just not a crime to fail to come to Mike Pence's defense. He was not charged with inciting a riot because he did. You can say morally responsible. You can say disqualified from the presidency. Congress tried to do that and didn't vote to remove him from office on that basis. But when I see in the report over and over again, he tweeted, he said, it's just about condemnations on his actions the day of, which is not a crime to me.
But you're making it sound as if he was charged with incitement, which he actually was not charged with. He was charged with defrauding the United States by trying to put forth an attempt to overturn an election, and with denial of rights, because had his side prevailed in this scheme that he launched, it would have thwarted the democratically expressed wishes of the people who had voted for President Biden. Now, the point about that is, it is valid within that general argument to make the point that when there were threats to hang Mike Pence, or when Mike Pence was endangered, Trump did not intervene. The point is not that simply the failure to intervene to save Mike Pence was a crime. The point is the failure to do it buttresses the case that the overall quest was to overturn the election result.
I think that, again, the defenders of Trump will say that gives away the game when it's really an attempt to hold Trump criminally liable for the actions of the rioters on the day of January 6th, because there's so much in here, still in this report, about Trump's movements day of January 6th, including gathering evidence that they gathered about his who had written a draft tweets on his phone, all that kind of thing, which just so involves speech to me rather than actions, and I draw a very clear differentiator there.
I actually don't think that's fair.
Okay.
So I think that there is the things that were the subject of criminal prosecution were actions, not words.
Tell us what you think. We'll be back. We have good debate as always. Lots more to come on Rising Today. Stay tuned.